Oh, g'day, my name's Rowan Foley. I live in Alice Springs. We do a lot of work with traditional owners, mainly up in Cape York, Top End, Kimberley. We tend to work around the savanna burning methodology, so around the fire management stuff, and I'm quite happy to talk to you about that. We do have some information about how that actually works. About a year ago, I got a phone call from Mike Gruen, CEO of AgForce. He'd been looking over the work we did with traditional owners. And he said, mate, the work that you're doing with the black fellas, can you do that with the white fellas? And I said, well, yeah, I think we can do that. And the reason why he liked the work that we're doing is because it's all about the people. It's all about the traditional owners, and it's all about the farmers. And that's what he wanted. So we do a lot of work. We have an MOU with AgForce. They fully support our work, core benefits framework. We are working with pastoralists down south around the environmental, social and cultural values of carbon farming. Now, look, a lot of people, I like the work that we're involved in. A lot of people like the price that we operate at. So, look, I'll go straight to that. Look, we carbon credits that we trade with environmental, social and cultural values trades for about $17 a tonne. It's probably about the top price you'll get in the market. The Commonwealth Government, their price at the moment is, the long-term average is $12 a tonne. The last auction was $14 a tonne. I hope you don't mind. You've already said that I think you guys are trading around about $10 a tonne. So the reason why we get top dollar is because of the environmental, social and cultural values. Now I'll just flip this chart around just to explain a bit more about that. So this is my little pre-made thing. So the Australian government, the Commonwealth Government, Emissions Reduction Fund, not interested. So if you go to them and you say, oh, I've got a carbon credit and I have all these other things that we're doing, they'll say, yeah, great, but we're not interested, here's $12, right? They don't do it, okay? Queensland Government, it's unknown. Yes, we have the Land Restoration Fund coming up. We don't know exactly what it will look like, but it's coming through the system. We will know what it looks like soon, but it's unknown at this point in time. Right, so this is where we work here in the voluntary market. We've been around for about 10 years now. Like I said, everyone's interested in the second last point, and it's probably about the least interesting thing that I actually do, to be quite honest with you. Making money, and I know it's important, but it's about as interesting to me as watching paint dry. What's interesting to me is everything else. So in terms of your environmental, social and cultural values, we've just finished our first verification up in Cape York, up in Kownyama. So we provide the training to people to actually go and do it. So the training takes about 4 days. If you do the whole course around the environmental, social and cultural stuff, it takes 2 days. So we do the training, it's nationally accredited training. Jobs, we invest in local people. We don't bring up people from Melbourne or Sydney or Canberra. We invest in locals. And the way we go about investing in locals is we use a peer-to-peer framework. So, and the way that we'd adopt it here is farmer to farmer. So we got rangers who had never been to Kownyama before, which I actually found quite interesting. We trained them up, we brought them down to Kownyama, we did a verification, took a week. And then we had to it's got to go to an independent assessment committee with CSIRO and universities over the top of us. But when I first started looking into doing this work, I said, well, look, why don't we get KPMG or Ernst & Young? We'll get one of those top firms from Melbourne and Sydney. And my offsider said, why? You've got rangers here that you can use and train up and skill up. Why aren't you using the local people? And I said, oh yeah, why aren't we using the local people? The tools, so this is one of the tools. It's a verification framework. It's about 40 pages long. We make it pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It's designed for people who can't read and write English. So people who have English as a third and fourth language. So traditional owners who have a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, but maybe only went to grade 2. So this is, so we spent 2 years figuring this out. It didn't come overnight. We spent a long time figuring it out. Well, how do you go through a professional verification process and the guy only went to grade 2? What tools would you use? What approach would you use? How would you actually go about doing it? How do you, things like asking an open-ended question as opposed to a closed question. So there's techniques and there's ways that you do it. And we spent a long time figuring it out. And we've just done our first one, so we actually know it works, so, which was good. So the approach that we use is peer-to-peer. So it's traditional owners working with traditional owners with the right set of tools and the training. And the way that we would do it in these areas is farmer to farmer. So it's not some shiny bum from down south, it's farmers working with farmers. And if you're trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes who's been in the game for 30 years, well, good luck to you. I don't think you can. And it's all about gathering evidence and going about it in the right way. And you're welcomed onto properties. It's a very warm approach. It's a very embracing approach, and it's a strengths-based approach. So we talk about, things like, what are you proud of? What do you think you do really well on this property? What do you have a great deal of pride in that you think you're doing really well? Talk to us about the good work that you're doing. And people say, I think we're doing pretty well on this. I think we're doing a pretty good job now. I'm pretty proud of that. So it's a strengths-based approach. And then that leads to knowledge exchange. So when you have farmers working with farmers, you have traditional owners working with traditional owners, you have knowledge exchange. When you bring in people from down south, that knowledge goes down south. We try to keep it up north, working in the industry with the people. And if you do all these things, it leads to higher prices in the market. So we work almost exclusively now with corporates from down south. So some of our buyers, Sydney Opera House, National Australia Bank, IMF Investors, Gilbert and Tober Law Firm, we've sold to Qantas, Virgin are interested, Intrepid Foundation are interested, Australian Catholic Universities are going to buy from us. We have a whole list of corporates from down south who want to invest in people and the good work they're doing on properties. And so carbon just simply becomes the mechanism for that investment. Carbon's not the end game here. The end game is getting investment to your property to sustain your livelihoods. And we're just using carbon as that mechanism to enable that to happen. People get a bit carried away with this carbon game. They think carbon's the end all and be all. It's not. It's just a mechanism for enabling investment for investors to come to invest in your property and your good work that you're doing. So the way that we phrase it, and say, look, if you support the traditional owners, if you support the work that they're doing, if you support looking after country, well, come and buy our carbon credits. We sell for top dollar. People are interested in that story. People talk about the story. And then it's about getting the right investors to come in and invest in you and your property. And if you get a big investor on the hook, you get a blue chip investor. My advice to you, and we did this with the National Australia Bank, is we brought them up to the community. We took them up. We said, come and have a look at the project. Come and meet the people. It's all about being very authentic in the way that we go about this, and they jumped at the chance. So if we go down that path, I'd be saying, well, look, if I was you, I'd be having a barbecue and a few beers with them. Get to know your major investors, because they're the ones shelling out hundreds of thousands of dollars for your property, and and they want to meet you. They want to see what you're doing, and it's like, yeah, come and talk to us. So when we rattle off these things, we talk about environmental, social, and cultural values. I'm just going to look. The environmental stuff is pretty straightforward: weeds, ferals, biodiversity. You're probably doing a bit of that work on your property already, and we can also back that up with the information that's contained in this data here. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of information here, and there's a lot of work that you're already doing on your properties. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I find the social stuff the most interesting. So when we talk about social values, what are we talking about? Talking about, well, are you a local? You know, you might be third generation. You know, do you have a local commitment to this community? Are you a member of local clubs? Are you a member of NRM? Are you a member of the local bushfire brigade? Do you support your local footy team or netball team? Do you buy locally? Do you support your local economy? Do you employ local people? You know, what are your social values that says to an investor that they're investing in someone who has strong social values, a strong local person that has strong values? And you know, if we can, you know, verify those social values, then say, yeah, mate, I'm third generation. Yeah, talk to anyone around here. Yeah, I coach a local footy team. I'm a member of NRM. I'm a member of the Bushfire Brigade. I have a strong local social commitment to my community. That's what the corporates like to hear. And if we can say, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we went and checked him out. We've got another farmer to come over and check him out. Yeah, it's true. Then they will invest in your work because they like those social values. So, you know, that's, and as a consequence of that, we get higher prices in the voluntary market. But that, you know, look, I'm more interested in the work than the money, and I know that sounds a bit funny, but I'm more interested in how you actually go about doing this. How do you engage farmers working with farmers, traditional owners working with traditional owners? What do you actually do? How do you actually support them? What does that actually look like? How do the tools roll out? How do you actually enable that to all happen? And if we get all that right, when we go to market, we make the good money. But it's not. Look, it's not the money that drives me in the work that we're doing. It's just that so happens that people are willing to pay top dollar for the outcomes of that work. So that's why Mike at AgForce was interested in our work, because we invest in local people and the work that they're doing. And that, you know, we do all this work with traditional owners, and so it's just a matter of, you know, slightly modifying the work to work with pastoralists. So that's why AgForce said, yep, we'll have a slice of that. You know, come and work with us. So I said, yeah, okay, that's right. So that's what we do.